Welcome to The Change is Real, Measuring Impact and Results. Plant with Purpose empowers rural communities to escape poverty by reversing environmental damage and deforestation and restoring life-giving ecosystems. This work has never been more critical as climate change makes life increasingly difficult for the approximately 1 billion people in poverty, 85% of whom live in rural areas. These individuals rely almost exclusively on small farms to support their families, steep, rocky land that you and I would hardly call a farm. And yet circumstances are desperate. There's also great reason for hope. And that's what we want to bring you here today. We have just completed our triennial study measuring the effectiveness of Plant with Purpose's work around the world, and we have some exciting results to share with you. My name is Lynne Marian. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Plant with Purpose. And I'd like to introduce our two presenters. I have here to my left Corey Chin, our Monitoring and Evaluation Manager. And we also have Corbyn Small, our Development Director, who will be joining us on Zoom from Colorado. Corey, I'd like to start by asking you, why and how do we measure impact?
So the reason that we're so interested in measuring the impact of our work is because we know that activities alone do not guarantee impact. And so, for example, we conduct workshops to promote regenerative agricultural practices, but that doesn't necessarily mean that farmers will then go and apply those techniques. So it's important for us to periodically go out and measure what's actually happening. The driving force behind our impact measurement has always been to ensure that we're really having the intended impact, and also to optimize use of our resources. And so while of course we want to know if we're having a positive impact, we also want to know where we can improve. By closely relating our impact measurement to the theory of change, which guides our programming, we're able to see clear linkages between impacts and the activities that led to those impacts. And so if an impact result is underwhelming, we can identify where things went wrong. And so structuring it in this way is what makes all of the data we collect actionable. When you look at our theory of change, on the left-hand side, you can see activities, which lead to outputs, which are easily measured and quantifiable. Those then lead to outcomes, which are short-term results measured annually in order to guide programming and make proactive course corrections. These then lead to impact, which leads to the goal of holistic transformation. Last year, we conducted our triennial impact evaluation across 8 countries and 4,000 households. And we've recently published the results in our impact report. We're seeing exciting results, and we're seeing families grow out of poverty while transforming the landscape around them to the degree that we can actually see measurable change in tree cover and vegetation from satellite imagery.
Thanks, Corey, for sharing that. And before I move on to focusing on the where of the work that we're doing, I just want to stop and point out how grateful I am to the programs and technical team at Plant with Purpose, because you have been investing in measuring impact for 15 years. I've been at Plant with Purpose for 13 years, and this work was in process before I even came. And what's unique and stands out to me is that this conversation is incredibly important and relevant today. Donors are increasingly interested in knowing about the impact of the support that they're giving to organizations. And so you're hearing a lot of organizations who are talking about measuring impact. And what you said, I just love, because you said the driving force has always been to ensure that we are really having the intended impact and to optimize the use of our resources. It is not driven by us and marketing and communications and fundraising to have the best thing that we can say. The critical piece is that Plant with Purpose is sought to measure impact because it allows us to know what's working and what's not working and how we can better serve in the communities we work. So thanks, Corey. I really appreciate you all. Thanks, Lynne, for the introduction. I want to focus on the where for a moment, and not just the country level, but actually something more specific. So at the country level, working in East Africa and Democratic Republic of Congo, and Ethiopia and Tanzania, Burundi, working in Southeast Asia and Thailand, and then in the Caribbean and Latin America, working in Mexico and Haiti and Dominican Republic. Those are the places that we work, the countries that we work in. But what I want to talk to you about is actually Plant with Purpose's signature Watershed Model. This is an incredible development that's taken place, especially over the last 5 years, but it's been in process and in hypothesis for the last 10. And I want to introduce a video to talk a little bit more about that.
Today we face two overwhelming challenges: world poverty and environmental damage. These problems are interconnected. 4 of 5 families experiencing poverty rely on the land. The most vulnerable farm steep degraded plots and conditions made worse by deforestation and climate change.
We work harder each season, but produce less food. Some days I had nothing to feed the children, except for cassava leaves.
Cultivating these farms can further erode the soil. But kids are hungry today. What can we do? Heal the ecosystems. At Plant with Purpose, we work in these remote, rural communities across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. A few years ago, our research revealed something incredible. Program participants significantly reduced their poverty, and so did other people who simply live in the communities where we work. Lives were transformed across the land. We call this innovation our Watershed Model. A watershed is an area of land defined by hydrological boundaries. Water flows downhill toward a common river or body of water. These areas are marked by natural boundaries like hills and mountains. Life within the watershed is deeply connected and interdependent. Creation was designed as an ecosystem. Trees protect the land, build the soil, and cool the air. Healthy soil leads to healthy plants. This leads to life-sustaining, regenerative cycles. We don't need to reach every family in a watershed to make a major impact, just the right amount. And because farms and communities in a watershed are connected, what happens on one person's land impacts everyone else. It begins with locally led purpose groups that includes regenerative farming, saving groups, tree planting, spiritual support. Farmers improve their own land, work together to develop the community, and share what they learn with their neighbors. Church partnerships provide hope, changing the way that entire communities think about caring for creation. Now we can work even more strategically and make a bigger impact. Hundreds of thousands of lives and millions of acres of land are being transformed.
Our community is transformed. We have trees, more water, and wildlife is returning. Our lives are improving day by day.
It's simple. When we work in harmony with creation, the land and its people can heal. The Plant with Purpose Watershed Model is making that possible.
I thank God the land is coming back to life.
Wow, the watershed model seems like a real game changer. Corbyn, what is the real power of the watershed model? Is it the impact on people or the environment?
Actually, Lynn, it's both. Hands down, it is both. As a community development organization, it is logical to focus your efforts in a geographic area for the social solidarity benefits that you'll see. For example, if you want to see behavioral change, then you're not just going to work with one person in one area. As an environmental organization working with people, there's also incredible ecosystem solidarity to be gained by defining your scope of work within a watershed. To put it another way, if you're trying to affect landscape change, then it makes the most sense to use an environmental delineation, and that is a watershed. The watershed model takes the successes and lessons learned by Plant with Purpose over 35 years, and it centers it geographically to maximize the environmental and social impact in the most sustainable way. In 2017, after a 2-year pilot, we really gained incredible data showing that the watershed hypothesis was actually working. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the hardest places that you could possibly choose to work as a nonprofit organization, we formally implemented the Watershed Model from scratch. And what we saw after 2 years was a 60% reduction in poverty levels amongst participants and amongst non-participants. The Watershed Model has become the signature design for our programs at Plant with Purpose. It reduces costs, it improves scalability, allowing for us to reach more people and restore more land.
Well, that's great, Corbyn. So, Corey, as Corbyn was saying, the bottom line of the Watershed Model is reducing poverty. Yet poverty is complex. What does poverty alleviation look like in the context of our work?
Because our program is holistic and multidimensional, we measure our impact in alleviating poverty by using a multidimensional poverty index, or MPI. MPI is based on 12 indicators of conditions of poverty that covers land, housing, food, time and opportunity, farming, and financial stability. And so MPI combines the level of poverty within each household, or poverty intensity, with the prevalence of poverty, or number of households in poverty. And this allows us to look at poverty comprehensively to assess whether or not significant and lasting change is taking place in our watersheds. Our most recent impact data shows that Plant with Purpose families experienced a 55% reduction in poverty. This means that they're eating more meals, they're eating more nutritious meals, they're saving more money, have more diverse farms and income, and are more resilient to environmental and economic shocks like we saw over the last year and a half.
Wow, that's great. Thanks. So, Corbyn, Plant with Purpose works in 3 areas. We have 3 areas of intervention. Tell us what the research is telling us about how those areas are working.
Absolutely. As a way of transition into that, I actually want to share a little bit of the founding story of Plant with Purpose that identified some of the challenges that Plant with Purpose then seeks to address. So, 1979, Hurricane David strikes the Dominican Republic head on, and it's a Category 4 hurricane that absolutely devastates the island. And all across the news in the United States, we're seeing incredible devastation and families that are experiencing massive amounts of poverty. And volunteers, the founders of Plant with Purpose, Tom Woodard and some folks from his church, decided to go to the Dominican Republic to try to meet the needs that were being shown on TV. They started in Santo Domingo in the slums, working with individuals, distributing food aid. And as they spent time with those individuals in the communities, they started asking, what is it that you do? What is your vocation? And overwhelmingly, people responded that they were farmers. And it posed this question, well, if you're a farmer, why are you in an urban slum where there's no land to farm? And it pointed to the connection for what would become the mission and vision of Plant with Purpose, but it's that interconnectedness between the environment and poverty. And so Plant with Purpose looked upstream, literally and figuratively, to see what was the poverty that was being experienced in the rural countryside in the Dominican Republic that was driving people to leave that land and move into the slums of Santo Domingo. So economic poverty, a lack of access to financial tools and services, predatory lending, where people are being forced to take loans for 100 to 300% interest rates, absolutely astronomical. Families that were seeing decreased income from farming, driving further environmental degradation. Environmentally, decreasing farm yields put increasing pressure on forests. And this vicious cycle, as farmers tried to provide for their families, saw their land degrade, and then cut more forests down to farm more land. And then spiritually, rural subsistence level farmers are some of the most overlooked and underestimated groups of people in the world. Imagine if you worked 7 days a week with all of your toil and all of your effort, and the global economy said, your work is worth $1 a day. It's easy to lose hope with that kind of a message being told to you. Government saying that you're a peasant farmer, you're looked down upon. So to transition now into talking about what are the activities then that Plant with Purpose is doing that's seeking the impact and the outcomes that we want to see. So spiritual renewal, this is an incredibly powerful and base of who Plant with Purpose is. Even non-Christian development funders and practitioners acknowledge the importance of spiritual beliefs and understandings in communities. Jayakumar Christian and other authors have observed that poverty is really about more than just a lack of material stuff and possessions. At its core, poverty is about relationships that are broken. And this includes the relationship between God and human beings and nature, and human beings and neighbors, and even our view of ourselves. And restoring these relationships is a part of our work in reversing poverty and restoring the environment. By addressing these topics around empowerment and life purpose, Plant with Purpose seeks to transition these rural communities and that are experiencing poverty from a space of powerlessness and into one of agency and hope for the future. So the activities that Plant with Purpose does in the area of spiritual renewal are to partner with local church networks and train leaders and participants on a variety of topics, including peace and reconciliation, theology of work, creation care, care of creation, and then having local staff who build incredible relationships over time in communities, focusing on listening and valuing local knowledge. Our most recent impact evaluation shows that partnering farmers are more likely to believe that their community works together to solve problems, that their work is a good use of their talents, that they have the ability to improve their life, and they feel pride in the work that they do. We also see that participants are serving their neighbors at a higher rate than non-participants. Through all of this, I think the key thing is that our staff truly believe that every single person that we partner with is made in the image of God, and they have unique talents and skills to offer. And that belief is fundamental in building trusting relationships to bring lasting change.
The impact we're seeing in environmental restoration is really encouraging. Through our Seeds of Change agricultural curriculum, our participants are promoting crop diversification and regenerative practices that benefit soil, air, and water, while at the same time increasing the farmers' yields. And so we're seeing results in our impact evaluation that show that partnering farmers have 40% more crop diversity, 25% more income diversity, and are applying 89% more sustainable techniques. These changes are benefiting farmers by providing them with more income, more resilient livelihoods, better nutrition, and improving the natural environment around them. Partnering farmers are also planting millions of trees every year, and the most exciting thing about this is that we aren't paying people to plant trees. They're doing it because they know that they will benefit them, their families, and their watershed. And this is the only method of tree planting that is truly scalable and sustainable for us. Partnering farmers planted over 6 million trees this past year alone, and these trees are combating climate change by sequestering carbon and improving the environment by not only reducing deforestation, but actually resulting in reforestation of watersheds. Because our participants are planting 4.3 times as many trees as non-participants, we're able to see a measurable difference in the change in vegetation each year in the watersheds where we're working compared to neighboring watersheds where we're not yet working. And so this is a great example of how the activity, which is tree planting, is in fact leading to the intended impact, which is to increase tree cover and vegetation in the watersheds. And we've seen this in our most recent impact evaluation data.
Plant with Purpose's main platform for economic empowerment are called purpose groups. Those are built around the model called Village Savings and Loan Associations, which are essentially savings-led microfinance groups. These groups provide a forum for saving, borrowing, gaining financial literacy, working together as a community to solve problems, and training environmental organization. This is the platform that Plant with Purpose does all of its work through, is a purpose group. The outcomes and the impact that we're seeing is that partners who have participated for 3 or more years in a purpose group are twice as likely to be saving cash as non-participants, 95% versus 48%. Partners have 2.5 times as much savings in reserve, approximately 2.5 months worth of savings. And Plant with Purpose partners' sources of income are 18% more diverse, with income diversity being a key pillar for withstanding economic and environmental shocks. Right now, today, at this moment, there is $7.4 million US equivalent in equity that is saved by 54,000 partnering families, and they're earning 19% return on their savings. Of that 7.4 million, 5 million is lent out in loans to those community members for education, for healthcare, business, regenerative agriculture, tree planting. It is truly remarkable to see the impact that purpose groups are having in communities. If you're not familiar, please learn more on our website. These groups are enabling banking at the community level, and they are truly repelling the predatory lenders that once thrived in these communities. Combining all of these impacts, spiritual renewal, environmental restoration, and economic empowerment, as Corey mentioned, Plant with Purpose measured a 55% reduction in poverty amongst the average participant who Plant with Purpose has worked with for 3 or more years. Today, we're working with 54,000 farming families, impacting more than 300,000 moms, dads, and kids.
Wow. Corbyn, thank you so much. And Corey, thank you. These were amazing insights, and I am encouraged. I hope you are too. As was mentioned, we are pleased to have just completed our triennial impact study, and the results were released in a report that many of you as Plant with Purpose supporters may have already received. But if you haven't seen the report and you'd like to view a PDF, visit plantwithpurpose.org/impact. The needs are urgent. Our approach works. It's time to grow. Over the next 4 years, Plant with Purpose will partner with an additional 100,000 families, which will bring our total reach to almost 1 million people across 10 countries. We cannot do this without you. Thank you for being part of the solution. Together, let's do even more.